Thank you. In the studio, as almost always, we have with us Elgin Police Chief Jeff Swoboda. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, great weekend coming up. We'll get to some of the things that we're going to be, or you're going to be involved in, and the city's going to have going on, and how that plays out. I kind of want to start with there was a recently $1 million grant awarded to U46. While it doesn't necessarily have to do with you, it kind of does. You know, it's one of those things that it's not directly affecting you, but it directly affects your job, the safety of the community, things like that. So with this, basically they're getting a $1 million grant by the Illinois Emergency Management Agency to improve safety and security at the district's elementary schools, the middle schools, the high schools, and they're going to use that to enhance security for entrances. A district-wide digital radio system that will be able to communicate directly with you and amongst the districts. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that affects what you guys do and just the everyday going-ons, I guess?
Yeah, just a little bit, because I don't know a whole lot other than John Heiderscheid had told us that they put in for this and they were looking forward to getting it. And I know Dr. Torres had a meeting with police chiefs maybe a month ago or so. We talked about some safety things in the future, or school resource officers and things like that. So we're excited with any advancement like this where the safety will be increased in using video surveillance for the entryways, them being able to communicate better with the officers who are there, and then I think between schools is also part of this. So yep. I know that they are always looking, and John Heiderscheid works with our school resource officers and Sergeant Gary Neal, who's in charge of our school resource officers, routinely as far as what are the issues, how can we improve safety, and just looking at the general operation and continuously improving. So with this, hearing that they got this grant, that was exciting news, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do all schools. I'm not sure,
right.
But I think any advancement like this will be helpful, so it's good for them.
So it was a couple of years ago. I was just talking about school safety, and I know it all kind of relates. I was driving, and I was coming to the intersection where Larkin High School was, and a squad car was maybe a couple cars in front of me, and pulled out through like the red light where there was no oncoming traffic coming from the other way, kind of pulled into the intersection, kind of on an angle, and got out, and it was Sean, and he started directing kids across the street who were crossing basically like against traffic. It was just, it seems like just the most unsafe situation going on, and he just jumped in and took control of the situation. Is there anything that can be done? I know Larkin sometimes, because of the proximity to where the McDonald's is directly across the street, where kids are maybe getting something for breakfast or doing something, it just seems like a dangerous intersection. And I know that doesn't directly relate to that, but it's safety.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's something we have had countless meetings on. In fact,
I'm sure for years and years and years. Long before we've been doing this show.
Right. And, yeah, if there was a McDonald's across the street from my high school, I know I probably would have stopped over there quite a few times as well. And so we get that. What we're looking at doing and trying to work with Larkin High School as well, because they recognize this is an issue, is get the kids to the crosswalk. I mean, I drive through that every day, and sometimes 4 or 5 times a day. Not through McDonald's, but through the down the street.
No, you did definitely not
only once through McDonald's. But and I was driving by today. The kids just walking across the street, and these are high schoolers who know better, and they know the cars are going to stop. So there's not even a waiting for a gap and then running across. So it's dangerous, and so I said to a few students who were walking across today as well about, you guys are about to be killed here. I mean, cars are coming at 35 miles an hour, or actually schools, they're supposed to be going 20 miles, but we all know that sometimes that gets pushed a little bit. And so I was happy to hear at the mayor's walk on, I think it was Wednesday night, the mayor had a walk over in South Country Knolls, and it kicked off at Larkin High School. The principal had mentioned that they're looking at getting a fence, and this is something that the school resource officer, Officer Hood, has worked with John Heiderscheid from U46 and explained that if we could get a nice looking fence out along that entire stretch of the roadway, and then push the kids to crosswalks on either side. Looking into those crosswalks where the flashing lights, where you press them and they have a blinking light that goes for about 10 seconds, and the cars know they can stop, and then it would just really free up the walking mid-block, and that's just so dangerous, jetting between cars when cars are lined up, turning in and out of Larkin High School. We'll be out, hopefully the fence will go in, and until then, school is getting close to letting out here. I know we'll be back out there trying to set the pace again. Our day shift did as well a job as they could have out there with the kids and directing kids to go to the crosswalk and actually writing jaywalking tickets. Because at the end of the day, I mean, Darren Hood has told the kids and put in announcements and tried to talk with parents and explain, listen, they got to go to the crosswalk. And I know when kids get tickets, there's always, don't the police have something better to do, and leave my kid alone, and we would much rather not be dealing with that problem out there, but it is a dangerous problem, and kids jetting out in between there, cars can't see, and it's just, we've had some close calls, we've had accidents out there, so it's not like it's not too hard to see that eventually this will continue to get worse unless we do something with it. It's been an issue. You talk to people, I know I've been in Elgin now 22 years, and it's been an issue with kids walking across the street like that. It just seems like lately it's even gotten worse. So we're going to be trying to address it as best we can. But I was happy to hear the principal Toon talked about they're looking at putting a fence up there, and he thought that they were going to be moving on that soon.
I don't think it would certainly hurt.
Right. Oh no. At least pushing them down. The mid block is where it's at. That's
exactly.
If you know they're going to cross at the intersection of Larkin and McLean, that's fine. There's a light there, or further down by the by Jane, which there is a crosswalk there. So if we can just get them at those two spots, at least you'll know there won't be the mid level crossing that's going on. So that's the hard part.
One thing we always talk about on the show too is community involvement. And there was a story or a press release put out just a few days ago about an 18-year-old Elgin man that was spotted by a neighbor, evidently, and I guess the neighbor saw somebody in their neighbor's car, walked towards the car, recognized that it wasn't their neighbor, and called police. That person fled, but the concerned citizen that was tuned in and engaged got description of the vehicle, description of the subject, called police, and officers on patrol within a block or two, it sounds like, were able to act on this and stop the subject and make an arrest.
Yeah, it was a great arrest. That Tuesday night we got this person arrested, and we're actually looking to see if there are any other cases. So if people have been the victim of,
that's often the case, right?
Right. Like we said, you don't wake up one day and then just decide. I mean, there's always a first burglary, I guess, that you would commit. But generally speaking, people that are breaking into cars, people that are committing robberies, are doing lots of other things and breaking into other cars or unlocked cars, whatever. So that's the key, is just really being a good witness. In fact, he's retired now, so we're going to have other people kind of pick up the slack with Sergeant Don Thiel used to run a class, how to be a good witness, and just talked about really what we need in policing. We don't need you to get involved. We don't need you to tackle somebody and hold them down till we get there. I mean, if that's the case, it's safety, but that's everybody's individual call what they're going to do. But just picking up the phone that you have and calling in a description of the vehicle. If you don't know it's a Ford or a Chevy, that's fine. It's a four-door red car. If there's anything distinctive, there's a broken, there's plastic over the back window, whatever. And then the last known location. And if you could stand, especially when people are calling mostly from cell phones, if you can stand on the street and say it's going south on this street, okay, it just made a left turn, now it's going west here. I mean, if you can give us that much information, generally speaking, we're going to have officers close enough by that we're going to be able to find that person. It's just when something happened at my house and I don't know, they're gone now. I mean, there's obviously multiple ways somebody can leave from there. We don't know if they're walking. We don't know if they're driving. Yeah. So all those types of things. So this neighbor called in. It was a great, gave a great description. Officers were able to find the car and make an arrest, find proceeds from the burglary there, and then found other things that we think might be proceeds from a burglary. So that's why we're working with other residents, if they've been the victim of a burglary as well.
It sounds almost funny. The class you were talking about, being a good witness. I was in college, and it was in one of my law enforcement classes, and it was completely set up, but we had no idea it was coming, where somebody barged into our classroom, created like this big scene in the classroom, and then left. It was maybe a matter of 15 to 20 seconds. And then our teacher instructed us all to give a description and write down as much as we remember about the incident that occurred. It was comical, the differences between the different students. And there had to be 30 students in that classroom, 30 different examples of their recollection of what occurred. So, I mean, it's point well taken for me, but it almost sounds funny, like how to be a good witness. Well, I see it, I'm going to remember what happened, I'm going to write it down. It's not that easy when you're put under the gun, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I mean, We do our security through surveillance classes, the free classes that we put on for people who have a security camera in their house or business, and where those cameras should be located, and then also just the power of video, because we'll do the same thing. Somebody will come into it's kind of a thing that's been used multiple times, but somebody will come in and drop off a packet and then leave, and then a little bit later we'll ask people, because many times you'll cash right a $100 bill, or you'll take a check, and then it'll be maybe minutes or maybe an hour later that you realize something has happened, or oh my gosh, this was stolen. Oh, it was probably that guy. Well, what did he look like? So it's not always right away. So it's an hour later we ask people, who came in and dropped off that folder? Some people will say, and it will be obvious, like you're saying. Some people will say, somebody dropped off a folder, so they completely don't even remember it.
Right.
Or if they do, they'll think it was a male when it was a female. They'll think it was an African American when it was a white guy. It's always, we just ask, and you get many different descriptions. Then it's also interesting. You kind of couple that with with the phone game, or whatever they call it, where the first person will give the description, the second person, they can't write anything down. They'll give it to the third person, and then the last person in that row has to give the description of what happened and what the person looked like.
That too.
And
That's incredible.
And it's completely. You thought that person who walked in, dropped off a folder, taught the class for an hour, and then they, did a handstand. You're like, what? What do you? Where did that come from? So it's just these embellishments that go on, and so that's where the video really comes in. It's just an observer there that's looking, and it's independent. It doesn't have, it's just, let's watch the video of exactly what happened. And so that's why we tell people, you put video on a 24-hour loop or a 3-day loop. You don't need to ever touch it again. It just constantly rewrites itself, but it gives you an accurate description of exactly what happened. So working through those things, it was a great description by the person, the neighbor. We were able to make a good arrest, and this is just, burglaries are busy right now. We're busy with the burglary. We've had, we've talked earlier, multiple shots fired call this year. It started off to be a very busy spring. So the police officers on the street, detectives, have been very busy recently.
One piece of, I hate to say cleaned up, but there was a pending death investigation, I guess, from November of last year that just recently made an arrest on, and this was Shantae Butler, charged with aggravated battery in a public place and unlawful restraint. This was the death of a 19-year-old, Takea Marshall, of Center Street, and this happened last November, and it looks like, you guys have known about the individual for a while, I guess. I don't. Can you talk a little bit more about it? It's kind of confusing, when you read through the press release. The first thing I kind of thought was, well, why wasn't this individual charged with murder? Maybe you could just talk through the case a little bit. It's what you know of it.
Yeah, the state's attorney has this case right now, so I can go basically off with the press release. And the facts of the case were that we responded, I believe it was November 8th, that there was an unresponsive female. We responded and went, and she eventually passed away at the hospital, or sometime there before. But so then we, through our investigation, realized she was involved in a fight, a verbal altercation 4 days earlier, and that verbal altercation eventually turned physical. And working with the Kane County State's Attorney's Office, and then there were medical professionals involved in the investigation as well, as determined that, trying to link what happened with the death of the girl. Apparently the medical examiner felt that was difficult. Won't go much further with that. So we believe we are able to prove that there was a fight, and she committed an aggravated battery on a public way, but responsible for the death. That's what the state's attorney, the medical examiners, ultimately determined, that these charges were more appropriate than going with that.
With the way the legal system works, or how it's laid out, once you guys complete your investigation, do you submit what you feel? Not in this case, so to speak, not specifically. Do you submit the information to the state's attorney and say, we've got this, and this, and then they take a look at all the evidence and say, well, we can't use this, or we can't? How does that whole system work in 5 minutes?
Right.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, we work collaboratively with the state's attorney's office in that we have a case that comes before us. We make an arrest. We find out something has occurred. We start an investigation, and we make an arrest. Misdemeanors, we will charge up, and we're able to just do the charges right then. Felonies are reviewed by the state's attorney's office, so prior to even charging a felony, which are the most serious call, we'll always make a call to a state's attorney's office, in which it's called felony authorization, and they'll review the case then, and the officers are at that point will explain, here's what I have, here's what I think here's what I believe should be the appropriate charges. Most times the state's attorney, because the officers know what they're doing, and state attorneys will hear the same thing and maybe ask some questions. Did you do this? Did you do this? What about this? And then they'll approve those charges. And that's not the end-all be-all. Then, as the case, once the reports get written, that's enough to get charging documents done, get the person before a judge in a timely manner, and then get bond set. And so then, from that point, the state's attorney's office, before going to trial, if that's what's going to happen, meets with the officers, what we call a pretrial. Here's, again, more information. Here's the evidence that has come back. Here's what we got back from the lab, if there were results that came back from the lab. And then you work together to figure out how it's going to proceed in court.
Before it actually goes to, say, trial, are there ever instances where you had charges X, Y, and Z, and just before it gets to trial, you say, we can't go with Z?
Yeah, there are times where,
right,
there are times
lesser charges decided on.
Exactly. This, more information that we have found. Okay, this will be a tough charge, or another witness has come forward, or other things can happen. A person may eventually admit to something that they did, and so, okay, now I want to tell you the whole story before trial. And so then they give the whole story, and then it makes sense. It may be something that was there is no longer there, or something new is there. So I know it probably is not a very clean answer, but it's basically just a work in progress. We believe, a crime has occurred. We have probable cause to make an arrest. We have that person in custody. We talk with the state's attorney's office. We tell them, here's what we have. They look at the same evidence and say, okay, do this, do that, if we're not already doing it. Let's send this off to the lab. Let's look for prints. Let's do DNA on this. And then it takes time before the cases go to court, and then we get all that information back. We review it again. And when I say we, it's really the state's attorney with the officer. Review it, and at that point then decide what we're doing for, and it's really the state's attorney's office. That's their call, how the trial's going to proceed, what they feel strongly they can make a case on, what they don't, and then bring it to trial at that point.
How often, as chief, are you brought in on these type of situations, or does it go from the officer to his commanding officer? Does it ever get to you where they say, hey, just as a final, we want you to take a look at this, or do you let that just cascade for the correct departments and the correct department heads?
Right, and for the most part, being the police chief, I'm notified for information, but we've got,
I know you've got great people in place.
Right, exactly, and that's really what it is. We have incredible detectives, and they're supervisors who have been detectives, and then lieutenant who runs the detective bureau, and then the deputy chief who, Commander Anna Lally, who's, so they do all that. So they'll many times, especially a case like this, will come and talk to me and say, here's what we've got, here's why we're doing A, B, and C. And you hire good people, train them, and then trust their judgment, and generally speaking, and so then I'll have conversations many times with the state's attorney, Joe McMahon. In fact, I just saw him last night at an event, and so we'll both talk about certain cases that are up, or this was coming, or did you hear this? And so mine's more for information and to understand, and also if there's an issue, sometimes there might be, state's attorney feels one, the assistant state's attorney feels one way, and we feel a different way, and so there might be, we think we can prove this, they don't think they can, and we'll have meetings and we'll talk, and sometimes I'm involved in those. But generally speaking, we've got top-notch detectives and supervisors who make those calls and work with the state's attorney's office and run with it that way. You
were talking about that you'd met with State's Attorney Joe McMahon last night, and I believe that was probably at the Kane County Officer of the Year presentation, right?
Yes.
And that was an officer from Aurora. I know we've only got a few minutes left here, but can you talk about that a little bit? I assume you were there then, if you saw Joe there.
Yeah, I was there. Deputy Chief Wolf was there, and our two officers were Officer Kevin Snow and John Ruste, and they were the officers who saved the life of the person who was electrocuted while trimming trees last year. And so Kane County, then you put everybody, not everybody, but if you have a case that rises to the level of Officer of the Year status for Kane County, you submit it. All of those get read, and all those officers are brought for a dinner and still receive an award. But then at the end of the night, one award is taken as being the top award in Kane County. And I said it's the person who won it. It's from an Aurora police officer, and he hit it on the head as you're sitting there and hearing all the stories about all the different lives that were saved and what different officers have done. You know, it was almost impossible to pick one, but they had to pick one, and his was certainly deserving. It was a bad crash when she saved the life of a little girl who was in the back seat of the vehicle.
And the officer was off duty at the time too.
Officer was off duty, just driving by. Yeah, so it was an awesome night, and learned a lot about all the other things. It was great to see all their chiefs and the officers that were in there, and our officers, John Ruste and Kevin Snow, again, really appreciated their work. And
congratulations on that.
Yeah, and I know Kevin was here before. So it was a great night, and very proud of all the different officers in Kane County, and the public can be very proud of their law enforcement in Kane County as well. It was quite a humbling night to hear all the different great work that's going on.
Foxtrot this weekend as well.
Busy weekend.
Busy weekend, right?
Foxtrot, yes.
Memorial Day,
all the Memorial Day
celebrations, yeah.
Yes, be it the Foxtrot won't be running. Willow Lakes is having a nice event for police and fire and military personnel. They're dedicating. They're having a little ceremony out there, in which on their island they've erected something out there that they're going to unveil. So I'll be at that. So I'm not going to be able to run the 10 miles. I'll be at there.
Darn.
Yeah, and then obviously at Bluff City Cemetery, there's that very nice ceremony that's done out there. Just a lot of things going on this weekend. So it'll be a busy weekend in downtown. So travel. Pick your travel routes, and plan them ahead. I do know that there's graduation on Saturday as well, and so if you are driving, don't come through downtown Elgin, and even on the far east side. I know our new route is going out towards Bodie Road, so you can go on the website and look up, make sure that the route you're planning on taking, I think Sears Center is one of the places where there's a graduation.
We have 19 ceremonies there this year.
Wow. And so if there's others in different parties, we know people get frustrated, so please plan a little ahead of time, because Elgin, especially on the east side, is going to be busy with a lot of road closures with that. And probably just my last thing, we did, Christy put something out on Facebook. I just very proud. Thursday night I was at my Chiefs meeting, and then went upstairs, and our community emergency response team was having a big meeting, and then I went to the Citizens Police Academy and graduated about 30 people, and was able to take pictures and hand out some awards for the Citizens Police Academy graduates, and it was the police department was abuzz with community members, and I repeated it that night multiple times. I'm glad they were there. It's their building, and people should plan. If you haven't been down to the Elgin Police Department in a while or come to a meeting, please do. This is your police department, and we're just really excited for. I think it's going to be a great summer with all of us working together. So it'll be a fantastic summer going forward. But please stop down to the police department. Many different events to get involved with, from neighborhood watch to the chief's meetings to community emergency response team. Just a lot of things going on at the police department.
Those 3 different meetings you had going on, you had to have what, close to 100+ residents in your building?
Probably.
That's in a good way.
Absolutely.
A few others that were in another part of the building.
Yeah, we were back there, but it was great. They come in, and many of them have their own award. Their badges, so they can just buzz themselves in and go to where they need to go. Our Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association, they also had a big cookout for officers for Police Memorial Week 2 weeks ago, and it was last Friday, and it was just a great event where they came and cooked out for all the officers. So it was just it's exactly what policing's meant to be. It's just collaboration with the community and the police officers, and it's just great to see, and it's great to be the chief.
Working together. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for coming in. Have a safe weekend. Enjoy it.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a fantastic, and thanks for all of our veterans from all the years gone by and presently serving for allowing us to have these freedoms that we have today.
Beat me to the punch.
Oh, I apologize. You can't say thank you enough, right?
No, not enough. Thank you, veterans.
Yep, thank you as well. You're listening to AM 1410, WRMN.
And Elgin.